When you're creating your goals this year, there's going to be one thing that's going to separate a goal which creates your life versus a goal that could even destroy your life. In this session, what I want to share with you is how using powerful constraints around your goals are not only going to make your lifestyle better, but make you perform at your best. If there's anything I've learned whilst helping people set goals, help leaders implement their goals, and actually looking at my own goals and what's actually transformed when I've gone out and put some powerful constraints around it, I've noticed that sometimes we create things in our lives that actually make our life way, way harder. And what I want to share with you is this thinking that's going to easily and very, very pragmatically shift the way that you use a frame around your goal. Now, picture this. You want to make $1 million in 2025. You set out and you're going to say, do you know what? I'm going to build a business of X size and I want to create X amount of revenue. Now, if you allow it, it will fill every single hour in your calendar. You'll feel every single waking moment thinking about it, taking action on it, doing work, maybe even not delegating efficiently to employees and co-workers and colleagues and contractors because you haven't put powerful constraints around your goal, almost like guardrails. Now, think about this, is that there's a law called Parkinson's Law. Parkinson's Law states work grows to fit the time you give it. Now, if you remember back to college or school, you'll remember that if you gave yourself the whole day to do a piece of work, you would use the whole day. And it's equally that when I run my gym, when I had 5 staff members doing a job or a task or a process, the work grew so that 5 people needed to do it. And I always used to notice this, even things like the cleaning. So when 5 people were tasked with doing the cleaning, 5 people would do the cleaning. And when I employed 1 person to do the cleaning, they did it more effectively, more efficiently, and they did it in less time than if 5 people were to do it. That's how inefficient it was. So work will always grow to fit the time that you give it. Now, let's take this back to thinking about our goals. Is that if you allow the time that you allocate to your goals to grow and grow and grow, what it'll mean is your goals actually end up inhibiting your life. And I can definitely vouch for this. I remember I had a very, very effective personal training business. So we started off as a boot camp, and in the morning, I would go and deliver a boot camp to between 50 and 100 people over 2 sessions. Then I would go to the local Costa and sit for probably the rest of the morning drinking coffee and reading books. That's kind of where a lot of my early education came from. Sitting, drinking coffee, reading books, great lifestyle, earning good money. And then I decided to get a gym. And as soon as I moved into the gym, what I did is I wanted to, A, increase the amount I earn, but B, I also wanted to fill the gym. And what I started to do is instead of just going and drinking coffee and Costa coffee in Llandudno, I actually started to do personal training in between each of the classes and in between the morning shift and the evening shift. And this became a problem because what I started to do was just, I would say just edge the amount of time that I was willing to work in the morning. So I went from finishing at 9 to finishing at 10 to finishing at 11. And then I started working earlier because the night shift, I said, oh, do you know what, come in for personal training at 3. Okay, then because I'm here 3 till 4, I'll do a session at 4. And then I turned around and looked at my life within a couple of years, maybe 2 years of running that gym. And I would go in at 6 a.m. and I would leave at around about 7 or 8 p.m. It became a curse of a workplace, because what happened was, even though I was successful, I was earning lots of money, I was having lots of connection, I was doing exactly what I loved, I had so much disposable income to invest in courses and education and all that sort of stuff, work had really grown to fit the time I'd given it. And this is one of two reasons this happened, because I hadn't set conscious goals. What would happen is that I would have what would be called unconscious goals, unconscious targets. I just wanted to grow. I just wanted to get bigger. I just wanted to fill the time that I had in my timetable. So that actually naturally happened. I remember when I hired my first sales coach, I remember having this conversation and he said to me, Ben, what do you want to earn in 10 years time? And obviously I was 24, 25 at the time. I said, hey, do you know what? I would be really happy making 100 grand's worth of profit that I could take out of the business every single year for my personal training and for my boot camp. That's where I was at. And I was really, really excited about that. And I remember I said, I wanted to get there in 10 years time. And he said, okay, well, what we're going to do, we're actually going to price based on that 10-year this year. We're going to do it in year one. And I was like, at the time, I really couldn't get my head around that. I was like, first of all, it was taking the future self and creating it in the now. But the second thing that was going on, it put a powerful constraint around the time that I had to go and raise that kind of money, to go and sell that kind of amount of program, to go and deliver that kind of service. And what this did, and this is what is really important around constraints, is it forced me to think differently and think more effectively. And here's the thing I've noticed, especially in my own experience, is that all that happens is it's no harder, it's just different. See, when I had the goal of making 100,000 worth of profit in 10 years' time, my strategy changed to fit that model. Yet when I changed that strategy to bring 100 grand's worth of profit into this year, well, when I was 24, what really changed was the strategy that I was using. It drastically changed. Instead of only charging £300 for personal training, I was charging £3,000 and £5,000. And what that meant is the strategy allowed me to sell to 20 clients and make exactly the amount of money I wanted to make. It also allowed me to be more effective, so I could lower the numbers of personal training I was doing. Because if I was to use my old model of pricing, which was from the past, that would have definitely meant that I would have taken way longer to get there, if not, probably would have burnt out along the way. So what constraints will help you do is they'll help you achieve your goals, but they'll also stop you from burning out along the way. So what I'm going to do on the second part of this session, I want to explore some of the constraints that I could share with you that might help you in your goal setting this year, whether you've set them or not. Because what's great about a constraint is that you might have already set a goal. You may not have already set the constraint. And this is the thing that I think what helps a lot of my clients is that when I set a constraint with them, they've already got the goal, but the constraint comes afterwards. And this is what helps them change their lifestyle. But actually, before I dive into that, this is what I've noticed again in my own work, is that I created a business between the ages of 30 and 35 where we had daily sessions. It was an amazing business. But what I did is I grew and grew and grew the amount of time that I allocated to that business. And there wasn't much downtime. There wasn't much time for me to think. I was very reactive. Although we did a great job and we really impacted a huge amount of guys, one of the problems was my lifestyle suffered. Now, in creating the leadership tribe, what I've noticed is that I've really, really constrained the amount of time that I'm client facing. I'm actually working in front of clients, which allows me way more time to do things like this, be creative, build things, make stuff, and create leverage. I've got way more time in my calendar. I see my kids more. I'm way more present and I'm far less stressed. So if you're a leader that's looking for all of those things, listen into these constraints because they will really, really help you. So here's constraint number one. I want to double my revenue whilst working 4 days instead of 6. Think if you're a leader and you're currently working 6 days. I can guarantee that there's some inefficiency in those 6 days. Even the most effective of people cannot keep up a pace like that, an intensity. And what happens is they often do great work, so they'll spend weeks on weeks on weeks pushing themselves really, really hard. But when they have a family holiday, when they stop, when it gets to Christmas, they will burn out. They'll often get ill. They'll often end up even being on holiday, being ill, or they'll find themselves spending 1 or 2 weeks with the flu. Now, I've noticed this not only in myself, because I've experienced this on occasions in the past, but I've noticed it in some of the highest performing people that I've worked with. Yeah, albeit they pride themselves on being able to push themselves really hard, working 6 days, sometimes even 7 at that pace only burns you out. So if you're struggling with this, a constraint for you could be to say, I'm going to work 4 days effectively and have 2 more days off. So this is what my week looks like at the moment. On a Monday, it's all about creation. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday serving clients, and Wednesday I've got off with Poppy and the kids, and it's a day of really deep connection with my family. And then the weekend, we've always kept that off. We've really kept that as a sacred time where I see my friends. And that, for me, allows me to be way more effective in the business. I want to write and publish a book in 6 months while dedicating just 30 minutes a day. This was one of the constraints that I worked with a leader, and she was writing a book. And the problem was that she thought that she had to spend 90 minutes, 2 hours, putting way too much time aside for her book, which meant it strangled her motivation to get even in and do it, because she was already busy. She was leading a company, she was doing great stuff, she had a big social media following, but allocating 90 minutes, 2 hours to writing a book always just seemed like too much. And by implementing this constraint, what it allowed her to do is to get into motion and get into that momentum of writing her book every single day. Now, what shrinking the change will do is it will allow you not only to get into action, but it'll allow you to keep taking action. And that's where most people fail. It's not that they don't take action, is that they take action, but because the change is so big, they falter. So this constraint of shrinking the time that you need to allocate to something will help you in so many different arenas. This could be even like something with your fitness. I want to get fit, but I want to do workouts that are no longer than 20 minutes. That's a really great constraint to have, because you can always commit to that amount of time. I want to reduce my working hours by 25% while increasing team accountability and output. So what this is for the leader who desperately wants to work less and be more effective, yet feels that they cannot do this because they haven't got the systems, the structures, the processes in place to give work to I can't think of even the word. It's delegate. There we go. To delegate the work to the people around them, right? So if you think about this, if the focus is delegation whilst working less, it forces you to do that. And this is why this constraint is a super powerful one, because you take your weekly working hours, you reduce it by 25%, and in that first week, you will find out what needs to be delegated to the people around you. And I'm working with a leader at the moment, actually, and she's aggressively doing this. It's a really impressive way that she's gone about things, right? So it's like not reduce the working time, but increase the delegation. So this is a really, really helpful one. Because what you'll find is that you'll probably have already set revenue goals. You might have impact goals. You might have transformation goals. But have you set these constraints? Because this is really important thinking. I want to spend 1 month traveling internationally while my business runs seamlessly without my involvement. So I actually had this constraint when I first worked with the same coach that helped me shrink my 10-year goal into a 1-year goal. One of the things that I wanted to do was assess if my business was actually a business and not just a job. So instead of setting a goal where I was delegating better, I just booked a 5-week honeymoon. So a 5-week honeymoon, traveling all the way Southeast Asia. And the goal was that I would go on this honeymoon, I would not open my laptop from day one to day, what was it, 37. And I took a load of books with me, didn't take my laptop, and found it really, really interesting, because my ego, my self-worth, my self-righteousness as a leader, thinking that I was super important, that it wouldn't run without me, was utterly destroyed with this constraint. Because what this constraint did is it forced me not to work in my business or for so many weeks, A, prior to going, but B, whilst I was there. So I had to create a team that could sell, that could deliver the product, deliver the service, that could actually grow the business. And I aggressively focused on that for the 3 months prior to leaving. And it was a success. I came back a lot fatter, a lot browner, a lot more chilled at the end of that 5 weeks, and the business had grown. And this constraint is a really, really great one, because honestly, doing this kind of test with your business is what makes it a business and not a job. So if you're a real leader and you believe in the power of people, and if you believe in the power of the whole versus the one, this is a great constraint to put in your goals this year. I've actually booked time away with Poppy in June, where we're going to go and travel Thailand with the kids, take them all to all amazing places this year, whilst still growing the Leaders Tribe. That's kind of my goal this year, kind of. Let's take that softener word out. That's my goal this year, because I want to go to Thailand, have a great time, but not having to work all the time whilst I'm out there. So I want to have a transformative retreat that generates 100,000 in profit while capping attendance at 10 people. What you often find, especially with products, I want to create this product, is that, especially for someone like me, I haven't got a huge audience. Probably if you're on this YouTube channel or listen to this Spotify channel, you'll find that I haven't got a great big audience. Yet I've got a very, very loyal following. And so many people are in exactly the same place. They want to create really great products, retreats, whether it's experiences or programs. They don't have the traffic or the reach. So what you actually do, this constraint makes you think about using price as a lever for the product that you're offering. Now, the way that you want to think about this is that if you were to create a retreat that was to generate 100,000 in profit, it would probably need to be quite expensive. Now, what you actually need to think about then is, what problem can I solve with a retreat that is worth 10 times the investment of the person coming for 10,000? And what this starts to do is it starts to help you think about, well, what are the expensive problems that I want to solve with my retreat? And so many people, like, if you think about this, like a retreat, sometimes you probably might get trolled for saying this, but is that even like going to rehab for so many people is a retreat. I remember I can't remember where I was, and someone gave me a pamphlet for the cost of a rehab. So they were like, they were talking about rehab. Actually, it was a networking event at a cricket club, and she was from a local retreat that just sprung up in North Wales, because beautiful place, lots of country manners and places like that, now turning into retreat spaces. And she came up to me and she gave me a pamphlet about a rehab. And I looked at the cost and the fees, what it cost someone to go to rehab for, I think it was like a month. And it blew my mind about how much the fees were. I couldn't believe that that was a retreat where someone would go and they would cure or remove the problem that they had with alcohol. But the problem was worth way more than that. So I know sometimes this thinking can sound a bit, if you've never heard it before, but what this does is that constraint forces you to solve a bigger problem. And this can be a constraint across all parts of your business. I want to have a one-on-one coaching practice and I only want to serve 5 to 10 clients, but I want to earn this much profit. It really helps you with that creation. Let's move on to the next one. I want to replace myself in daily operations entirely within 6 months whilst ensuring business growth. Now, I was inspired massively by a story from a trainer called Alwyn Cosgrove. Alwyn Cosgrove had one of the most successful gyms in I think it was the US per square foot. Amazing business owner, really great speaker. I've watched so many of his videos, never been over to the gym. But one of the things that really blew my mind is that he found out he had cancer, and he rapidly had to systemize the business in order to continue to grow whilst he was going through his treatment. Really, really powerful story for me as a gym owner at the time. And this is the thing, is that there's a really great book that I give clients called Built to Sell. And when we build our gyms, or when we build our businesses, or when we build our teams, so that we are in a place that we could sell them if we wanted to, we build them more effectively. But it also helps us remove ourselves from the product or service. Because one of the things that when you sell a business is that you will be looked at as what's called a single point of failure. If the business heavily relies on you as a leader, as the owner, as an operation piece in the business, it significantly lowers the value of your business. So this constraint will help you in the long term. It will help you make your business way more valuable. And I remember this at Fast Weight to Fitness. I was a huge part of everything. A lot of the knowledge, the processes, the structures were in my head. So I actually had to write down these processes, systems, and ways of creating great sessions so that they could be replicated by other staff. So this constraint will help you do this over 6 months. Because what happens is sometimes especially when people are either scaling their business, they're building it to be a franchise model, or they want to replicate their business. They take way too long. And what I want you to think with this constraint is like, how soon could you build your business so that you could scale it instantly, so you could replicate it instantly? So if something was to happen to you in 6 months, you have that peace of mind that everything would run as it should do. Really, really good. That's a really, really good constraint. I want to spend 10 hours coaching per week. That's one of mine. It's just like this year I said, you know what, I actually want to spend 10 hours per week coaching, because in the past I've done 40 and even 50 hours of coaching, and it's something that I really enjoy coaching. I really love that action and that part of the business. But what it does do, especially with my goals, it helps me work out who I want to be coaching, the problems I want to be solving, the people I want to work with, and the way that my services and my products are modeled. And that was really, really helpful for me. The next constraint, I want to make 500,000 in revenue from a single offer without offering discounts or promotions. Again, I think this is just a really easy constraint, is not offering discounts or doing promotions where you remove value from your service. I think that's such a helpful one. So saying that you want to create some sort of revenue goal without discounting or getting people in on low-level programs, it keeps that really, really like this is what I sell, this is all I sell, how do I go about selling it? I only want to work 4 hours a day. This is one of the hardest commitments, the constraints that I've personally used and helped clients put in place. Because what starts to happen is that we have these commitments to things that don't move the needle. And instead of being effective, we're busy. Now, when you shrink the time in a day on a daily basis that you've got allocated to your work, it drastically shifts the way that you look at the tasks that you've got to do. For example, it makes you think about what are the powerful tasks that must be done every day by you. What needs to go off your plate? What needs to be delegated? What needs to be deleted? What commitments do you need to let go of in order to be able to fulfill this 4-hour day? And I remember even just thinking about this at the start of the year, what had to go from my day if I wanted to do this? And one of the things with video editing, like I'm not a video editor. It takes me a long time to edit videos. I'm not nearly as good as many of the people on the internet. I needed to get that off my plate. So think about what that could look like for you. Because what this does is it forces you to audit all of the processes that you currently have in your business and the ones that you're fulfilling. It also makes your life so much better. Yesterday, I was standing in the park with my kids, having a great time. They were on the swings. I was enjoying myself. I was in the sun. It was 3 o'clock. I can remember times where I'd be going back into work to go and do my second shift then. And then that's something for me, it was a big, big moment. I was like really, really proud of myself. And yes, I don't do it every day. I'm not that free every day, but I'm definitely making strides towards that. And I've seen so many people achieve that as well. The final one, I want to make 7 figures in revenue whilst keeping profit over 50%. Because here's what happens, and I've experienced this as well. I've had moments, especially in my gym business, which had a high overhead, where we've rocketed sales, but we've also skyrocketed costs in marketing and all sorts of programs and ways to get those clients in. So this does help you focus on doing more with less, being more effective, thinking more in a profit instead of a turnover mindset. This constraint is so powerful because sometimes when you skyrocket revenue and you increase the spend, what ends up happening is you're doing way more, but nothing's changing. You're getting nothing really back in revenue that you can do something with, especially profit. So what you want to think about is what powerful constraints could you put around your spending as you grow this year? And honestly, like one of the best books on this is Profit First by Mike Michalowicz. He's got the Pumpkin Plan as well. Really, really great books that start to help you think like this. There's obviously interviewed Dan Bradbury. Profit is sanity, turnover is vanity. That's a great book on this very constraint. So these are powerful constraints you can use this year. I can honestly say the work we've been doing in the Leaders Tribe is helping people look at things like this around their goals. And there'll be a link to get in touch with me in the comments. I hope this has helped you. If it has, like the video or subscribe to the channel. I'd love to share more of this stuff with you. And this year on the Leaders Tribe, I'm going to be interviewing more people who have used these kinds of tools to help them create success that goes a mile high, but by creating foundations that go a mile deep. This is one of those foundations, powerful constraints. Cheers for checking in on the video. Take care.